Hi there, Lawrence Allen from Storye Content Production here, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how we create compelling stories. Then there's kind of 6 elements that we use at Storye that I wanted to get you across. The first thing is planning. We need to really understand what it is we're trying to say to people over what period of time. There's no point just producing a load of willy-nilly information. We want to have objectives and goals in place. We want to understand what we want the audience to do, and we want to understand the sort of narrative that we need to bring to them over what period of time. The second thing we want to do is put our audiences first. Sometimes there's a bit of a view in marketing, especially from a management perspective, that we want to push what we want to push. But really we want to think about our audience. So think about what they want to know and lead with that. The third thing we want to do is we want to give the story a really strong understanding of beginning, middle and end. So why are we telling someone something? What's the reason that it's interesting to them, and what do they want to do with that information? Now, when we're talking about content over social media, we're not talking about long format content, so we haven't necessarily got the space to do that. So as we plan, we want to understand periods of time that are more about warming our audiences up. Then it's a middle part, which is about nurturing them, getting to a point where they want to actually talk or connect with us more thoroughly. And then an end part, which is more about calls to action, where they can fill out forms, phone us, or we can create meetings to talk to them more thoroughly about our products and services. The fourth thing we want to do is we really want to keep it real. What does that really mean? So that's all kind of based around authenticity, and what it really means is, really distilling our purpose, our vision, our values into everything that we do. So when we're connecting with audiences, we're connecting with the right people in the right way. The fifth thing we need to do is we want to talk the language of our audience. So quite often when we talk about branding, we think about tone of voice, and that has a correlation between the type of audience that we want to connect with and also how we want to appear. So there's a middle ground there in terms of the sorts of language that we would use. But it largely, again, if we come back to that idea of making it all about our audience, it largely comes down to how they kind of speak that we need to think about. So if we're an accountancy or a recruitment firm and we're going after professional business owners, the sorts of language that we're going to use is going to be more on the professional side compared to a product or a service that might target more a youthful market. That might have a very different tone of voice when it comes to their brand. But that brand tone is incredibly important in terms of connecting with people. The last thing we need to bear in mind is not being afraid to change the narrative. So over time, as we're talking to our audiences, there's going to be points where things are going to change. World environments are going to change. What's happening, as we've seen in the last few years, can be very volatile. So we need to bear that in mind and actually think about what it is we're going to say. There is no problem with changing a narrative. A plan is a plan. It's there to be changed, but because it needs to relate to our audience. So we need to make sure what we're saying is correct and authentic and in the language our audience needs to hear. So don't be afraid to change that narrative.